Welcome to the Holistic Kid Show. My name is Zane.
My name is Imad.
And my name is Qasim.
We're the Holistic Kids, here to educate us kids from the inside out. Keto, paleo, low carb, carnivore, pescatarian, lactose-free, histamine-free diet, GAPS diet.
There are so many diets!
That can confuse us kids because most kids are confused. Most kids get sick with the SAD diet.
Standard American Diet, SAD. And that is so very sad. Because the sad diet is making us kids very sad. Very, very sad. And sick. We're just causing the sadness. So. But with all these diets, where should us kids start? What works best for us? We know it's a confusing world out there. So what is that we have the best? So we have the best guest today to help us with all of this and navigate the world of diets.
Julie Matthews, am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Julie Matthews is a certified nutrition consultant that holds a master's degree in medical nutrition. She's a global respected nutrition expert, published researcher award-winning author, and inspirational educator. Her guidance is backed by over 20 years of clinical experience and scientific research with complex neurologic
and psychological needs, particularly autism. She has lectured in more than 60 cities across 3 continents, been on television, radio, newspaper, blogs, and podcasts, including our podcast, well, now, and more, and published scientifically referenced articles in journals and websites. She founded the Nourishing Hope in 2005 to stand for the efficiency of a improved diet and nutrition for autism. After 20 total years of dedication, 20 total years, 20, she decided to start her global Nourishing Hope community, comprising families over 146 nations and bio-individual nutrition practitioners for 48 nations. So we are so honored for you to join us today. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom.
So how did you get?
Well, thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
It's our pleasure.
Say that again?
So how did you get into this world of diets and the world of autism? We would love to know your story.
Well, I was trying to figure out why some of them thrived and were really healthy and why some of them had different challenges with learning and all sorts of other things. And so I just started studying what foods were healthy and helpful and good for kids and what foods were causing them challenges.
Okay, so why diets? Did you just looked at somewhere and they're like, oh, this is really sad. Let's just focus on diets. Or is there a story behind it? Did you what's your story behind it?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. So it's a little bit of both. I met a dad who recovered his kids from autism, and I had a meeting with him to talk to him about the different approaches, and I discovered that there were some very specific diets that were helping kids get better. And so I started to really focus in on autism and that there was something that you could do to help them. And so that's how I started. And I started with one diet to begin with, which was a gluten-free and a dairy-free diet. But then over time, I started to realize that some kids did better on certain diets than other diets. And so over time, I started to really kind of refine that process so I could help each kid figure out what the best diet for them was.
So we have talked to a lot of guests on our shows. They have talked about a lot of different diets. But what are diets that work best? Like,
Oh,
what are
I
the
like this
diets that?
question because go ahead.
Oh no, I was just explaining just in case you didn't
Uh,
hear.
Okay, great. That's a great question because there are a lot of diets out there, and everybody seems that to think that there's one diet that's the best for everybody. But it's some people will think one diet is the best, and some people will think the other diet is the best. So what I've um, come up with is every kid is unique, right? And so every kid needs a unique diet. And so it's not just one particular diet that's going to help everyone. It's trying to figure out what that diet is. So some of the diets, when you ask what diets work best, I mean, firstly, a healthy diet is a great place to start because adding all those good foods, the good vegetables, fruits, protein, that's going to give us food to grow and think and learn and all of that good stuff. Another good diet is going to be a diet that's just a healthy diet, free of junk food and sugar and artificial additives, because those can be so harmful to our ability to think and focus and have good behavior and things like that. So those are a couple of them. But then some people do well by taking out certain things like wheat and dairy and certain foods that for some people might be inflammatory. And then there's other options too. Some people need to do grain-free diets. You talked about a few of the diets at the beginning. Some people need a GAPS diet or a paleo diet or something that doesn't have any grains at all, whereas other people just need to take out the wheat and the gluten. So that's kind of what I help people do, and I'd say those are a few of the ones that I think can be particularly helpful.
So,
Where
are
should someone start?
like where should someone
Hmm,
start to find
great
out?
question.
What diet they should choose?
Yeah,
They
that's
should.
a really good one. That's a
Hmm?
I would say that the best place to start is by just taking out as much of the artificial ingredients as they can. So I think a great place to start is to go to your cabinet and your cupboard and look in at your ingredients and read the labels. And if there's a word that doesn't look like a food that you can't pronounce or that doesn't seem like uh, just a normal food you'd buy at the store, um, then take out those foods. So artificial colors and artificial flavors and different types of preservatives. That's a great place to start by just cleaning up the diet. And that's something that everybody can do because there's always healthier options that are available that don't have the artificial stuff in there.
So, are diets related to genetics, or do they just pop up? Like, what's the science?
Mm. I love this one because I think it's really a key question that scientists are really trying to answer. I think that the best thing to do is the diets, to me, are addressing what's affecting the person and underlying the person. So if um, they're their gut hurts, they're having pain, they got a stomach ache, or they're having something like that, then there might be certain foods that they're not responding well to. So there's some good science on that showing that there are certain foods like gluten, for example, that can really cause irritation and inflammation. And so it can cause a lot of digestive symptoms that can be uh, uncomfortable and be a problem for people. So that's one example. There's other things as well. We want to have good foods that feed the good bacteria, and that's another thing that's really important for our health. Our gut needs that good bacteria, so we need those good fermented foods and all of that to help keep that good bacteria healthy. And those are going to be things that directly affect the brain because the gut and the brain are connected. And so when we have a healthy gut, we're going to have a healthier brain.
So
A lot of people say that if we take foods out, we don't get any nutrients from that food. Like we don't eat gluten, so people are worried that we aren't getting those nutrients.
Yes, and sometimes people will say that. I would say a couple things. If a food is creating inflammation, then our digestion is not going to be working well. So we're not even really able to digest the nutrients in those foods very well to begin with. And there are often other foods that we can eat that have those nutrients, but don't create that same inflammation. So, for example, in your great example of gluten, is the protein in wheat, and there are a lot of other good whole grains that can give us that good fiber and those good nutrients that we need that don't have the harmful protein compounds that gluten. So maybe instead someone might do brown rice or another type of a grain like oats or something like that. So you're still getting all the good nutrients, but you're not getting the problematic compounds.
So if you're born with like a diet that you have to, like, let's say if you're lactose intolerant and dairy really you're really sensitive to dairy. In the future, can you like can it get better? Like in the future, will you be good? Like, does that make sense? Like, can it change? Can your diet change? Or is it just you're born with it and you're stuck with it for your entire life?
It
So
can
can
change. It depends a little bit on what it is. So, like you said, if it's something genetic, then somebody might need to be on that diet for their life. Other times, they might be able to heal up whatever's causing the reaction, and they might be able to go back to eating some of those foods in the future. So, it does depend a little bit on the particular situation. I like to think that make your diet as healthy as you can, and that'll give you the best chance of having the most the diet with the most variety.
So what are some diets that you like? Like, what are just some diets? Like, can you list some diets for us?
Sure, absolutely. So we already talked about a few of them: a gluten-free, casein-free diet, um, the specific carbohydrate diet, the GAPS diet, the paleo diet. Those are grain-free diets. There's also diets like the low salicylate diet, or the low oxalate diet, or the low histamine diet, or the low FODMAPs diet. So those last four diets are more about taking out certain compounds that some people just don't process very well. And so that gets a little bit more specific and a little bit more down to the biochemistry of figuring out which particular compound someone might not be tolerating.
Mhm. So we had lots of people that talk about lectins, or we've had a person who have talked about lectins, and others that talked about low histamine, low oxalates. Can you tell us more about these more specific diets? Like, just tell us more about like each one. Like, what are oxalates?
Absolutely. So oxalates are these particular chemical compounds, these ions that are in foods that they can be very inflammatory, and they can create these sharp crystals that can cause a lot of pain and inflammation. And for some people, they can go from the gut, they can go from the intestinal tract into the body and into the cells, and it can create a lot of challenges for people. It can create all sorts of pain, and it can create a variety of challenges getting all of the cells of the body to function. And if we can't get all of the energy we need for the cells, then we don't have all of the energy and we need and all of our systems to function as they should. So that's oxalates. And then something like lectins. Lectins are compounds found in things like beans, lentils, peanuts, grains, things like that. And they can be inflammatory and they can inhibit mineral absorption. So those are a couple of the compounds. There's also probably another one of those compounds is histamine. So our body uses histamine to create inflammation. And sometimes that's good. We need a certain amount of that in order for our body to be healthy. But too much of it can be a problem. So we need to be able to not get overloaded by some of these things. And what can happen is that some foods contain these histamine compounds. And some foods, for some people, they trigger the release of that histamine. So it's too much, and that can cause a lot of the sort of like allergy-like symptoms and redness and inflammation and people just not feeling very good.
So you also talked about cell sites. What cell sites? What is that? Because that's a really
Yeah.
long word. Confusing.
Yes, it is. It is. It is. That is a compound that occurs naturally in plant foods. And actually, plants produce them as a way to keep bugs away. So it's a natural compound to keep them from getting eaten up by all the bugs. And actually, some of the one of the challenges, though, is that, normally they don't bother humans. These compounds, we're big and they don't really bother us. But sometimes if we're not able to break them down properly, then we can have reactions to them. And I don't want to say these are not bad foods, so I don't mean to single out food, but even sometimes some of the good foods that we like to eat, ketchup or tomato sauce or certain other, I almost hesitate to say what they are because I don't want people to think don't eat them. But, some of these foods, they can just be high in these substances. And when they can create a lot of hyperactivity, a lot of difficulty focusing. Sometimes kids feel agitated and, irritated by things very easily. And it's even in things that we really like to eat sometimes, like, drink like apple juice or certain fruits or things like that. And again, these are not bad foods, but sometimes we just have a little bit of a difficult time, or we eat too many of them all at one time. And for some people, that can be a little bit of a problem. I think the key is I think it's really important to really highlight that they're not bad foods. There's a lot of wonderful substances in these foods, and I would never encourage somebody not to eat them. I think most kids eat all of the good fruits and vegetables, eat all of the colors of the rainbow, eat all those good foods. But if you're finding that you're not feeling so well, then your parents can help you figure out maybe if there's certain specific compounds, and maybe if taking out a substance here or there might help somebody feel a little bit better.
So how can people find out what works best for them? I know Ahmad and Qasim have done food sensitivity tests, but is that really a good way to find out what they can and can't eat? And how do
that's a great way. How do food sensitivity tests what?
Work? Like, how do they really work?
Oh, great. So what they do is you take some, you are looking for there's little immune system kind of, what do I want to call them signals. What happens is that the body kind of reacts to the foods. And so you can test for those reactions. They're called IgG antibodies. Usually that's what they're usually testing. There are other types of food testing too, but what they're looking for is a reaction to the food. So they look to see if somebody might have trouble with um, whatever it might be, if it's wheat or dairy or soy or corn, or if there's some sort of an ingredient or substance that they can't handle, they can't tolerate, then the test can usually help them figure out if their immune system is kind of what I would call it overreacting a little bit. If, normally we're able to process these foods, but if the immune system doesn't recognize them as foods and instead recognizes them as a threat, then it creates it sends off the alarm system. And when that happens, it can create a lot of discomfort. Inflammation, we've talked about a lot today. It's one of the primary things. Inflammation creates pain. It creates challenges for the system to work like it's supposed to. Sometimes you don't feel very good. Sometimes you feel tired. Sometimes you have a headache or you have a stomach ache or something like that. So that's kind of how some of these food sensitivity tests work, and they can be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. So you work a lot about autistic kids. How do you help autistic kids with this? Like, how do you help them? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you
Well, we try to get their diet. Okay. We try to get their diet as healthy as possible. So some of the things we talked about, take out the artificial substances. So those artificial colors and artificial flavors that you find in a lot of candy, they actually can create a lot of hyperactivity and irritability and, just a lot of difficulties learning and focusing and things like that. And so taking out those artificial additives can really, really help kids feel better. And so that's a place that I like to start for all kids, but also kids that have autism. And then looking at adding all the good healthy foods that you guys eat, all good fruits and vegetables and protein and whatever other good foods, that's going to supply all the nutrients that we need for our body and our brain to function. Getting all the good, fermented foods in that are going to help with our the good bacteria in our intestinal tract. And then from there, I look at what kind of special diet somebody might need. So if they're still having challenges, is there anything that's causing a problem like inflammation and that inflammation affecting their ability for their brain to really function well? And then we might look at one of those special diets that we just talked about.
Where do you start with kids that are picky eaters?
Because most kids today are super picky. Like
super.
That's true. Do you have any friends that you see that are picky eaters?
Yeah, like one
that
doesn't
school with or whatever.
Yeah, because like some of them, like they don't like any vegetables. They don't like any stuff. All they eat is like Doritos and cereal, and that's like all I see them eat at school, and that's what they say. Like I said, and he says, he asked me, I'm always getting like sick, and I says, maybe you should try expanding your diets to more diverse foods like vegetables and proteins and like fats. And he says, ugh, those are disgusting. So then I decided because he doesn't want to really change, I guess.
That happened to my daughter when she was in elementary school, and she brought sauerkraut, and everybody said, ew, that's gross. And that's kind of frustrating sometimes. Well, thank you for sharing that, because that's, really helpful to, kind of understand what kids are experiencing, both you as healthy kids eating healthy foods, and then the kids that don't have that good foundation. So For picky eaters, I like to try to start with things they like. So let's take your classmate that likes to eat all the chips and things. Well, there you can make chips or buy chips made out of sweet potatoes. You can buy chips made out of carrots or parsnips or other vegetables. You can buy kale chips. So you can get all sorts, and or you can make them as well. So you can, even if you like chips, you could make some really healthy ones that are made out of vegetables, and that's a really good thing to do. So I like to recommend that picky eaters work with the textures that they already like, and then go ahead and just find healthier versions of them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
what happens if they don't eat that too? Like they don't want to change.
Yeah, they just don't wanna. They
like
just like
they
their
love
Doritos.
their Doritos,
Doritos,
cookies.
Yeah.
Then what do? Like they don't want to change. They like their Doritos. They don't want to change to the healthier versions.
That's
So
a
then-
hard one. That's a hard one because I know. Well, we do our best as parents to try to encourage them. I would say, how are they feeling? If there's any aspect that they're not happy with, if they're, not, their mood is sad or they're not feeling good, they can't pay attention as much as they want in class. Maybe they get more upset and, in arguments with people. Maybe they have more tummy aches than they want, something like that. Then I would say those would be good reasons to try to do the diet, and maybe try it for a little while and see if you feel better. So if they don't want to change, it could be a challenge, because we can't really force anybody to do things that are good for them, but we can try to encourage them by telling them how good it is for them and how they might feel better if they do it.
So are there any deficiencies? My mom tells us about like zinc deficiencies, like the white stuff on your nails and your bald spots and stuff. So are there any nutrient deficiencies that can lead to picky eating?
Yes, that's a good point. Zinc deficiency actually can lead to picky eating. And so that's another great reason to eat good, healthy food. Because the healthier foods you eat, the more zinc you'll get, and the more you'll hopefully have the good nutrients that you need. But also, sometimes people take vitamins and minerals, that in order to get some of that way as well. So I think that's a really great point, is that sometimes with picky eaters, we can try to get them good foods in a form that they like and try to get them as many nutrients as they can. But sometimes if they have deficiencies, they might need a little bit of extra help with some supplements.
Mm-hmm. So this has been amazing.
Amazing.
What is one thing kids and parents can do to help with their brains and bodies? And where should they start today?
like today.
Like today.
Right now.
Like right now.
Ooh, right now, that's a good one. Let me think about that one. I think the best thing you can do is to go to your kitchen and look at the foods you have in there right now, and look at the ones that are whole foods, like that you could think about, like you could go to a farmer and you could get that food. Like, do you have an orange at home? Do you have a banana at home? Do you have something that is just a whole healthy food? And see what kinds of healthy foods you have in your kitchen, and then also see what kind of packaged and processed foods that you have, and then read through those ingredients and see which ones are the less healthy ones, some of the ones that have the ingredients that you wouldn't want, and then maybe with your parents put them aside and try to replace them with more whole foods. I think that would be a good place for people to start. And they could do that, like you said, today, right now. They could go to their kitchen and just take inventory of what they currently have already, so they can get a better sense and better awareness.
Thank you again.
Thank you again.
So where can people learn more about you and your work?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me. It was really a pleasure to be here. And people can learn more at nourishinghope.com. They can learn all about me there.
This is so much fun.
So much.
Now let's recap
Well,
all of Miss Julie's key points. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
So every kid is unique. So every kid needs a unique diet. A healthy diet is a great place to start. Veggies, fruit, and protein that will help kids think and grow the best they can.
Take out all the artificial color and artificial flavors can cause hyperactivity and irritability, and taking them out of will help all kids.
Yeah, so artificial colors and artificial flavors can cause hyperactivity and irritability, and taking them out can help us kids. Take out all the artificial ingredients as you can. Read the label. If you can't pronounce the ingredient, just get rid of the food just to be safe. Clean out the diet. There are always healthier options.
It is important to find out what works best for you. Most kids can eat all the things that they want to eat, like the rainbow. But if you are still not feeling well, work with your parents and a functional medicine practitioner to find out what works best for them.
Go to your kitchen right now. Look for whole foods. Read the ingredients and replace them with whole foods.
And for picky eaters, start with the stuff they like and find healthy alternatives. Work with the textures they already like and then go from there. And encourage but if they don't want to give into the healthier diet, then you're just gonna have to encourage them and do your best to get them on the straight path.
Oh, wow, Miss Julia, this was amazing.
Amazing.
We are so
Amazing.
thankful for your wisdom and time today.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zane. I'm sorry.
I'm Qasim Ansari.
And I'm sorry.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom Tea, and look out for my mom's book. She's working on her 8th book, and I'm doing the illustrations, and we're also writing a book. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave reviews so other kids and families can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show, where kids aren't prying kids. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.